to go ahead and place these. And now when we were doing the first floor and the framing plan that went with it, or the basement plan.
You need to switch the monitor.
Yes, I can.
How can you do that?
I've been doing a lot of that lately. Okay, so here's my basement plan, which is, somewhat incomplete for this one, but in essence, we ran our floor joists in this direction through here, and most of us turned this wall, or if you had stuff flipped, this wall into a bearing wall to carry our floor joists, and we needed a detail of what's going on with that. Now, our full section caught that when we drew that in the basement floor, but we never really talked exactly about how that is done, and so I wanted to cover this. I think I made the statement I'd throw this on Google Classroom. Based on the tours that we did, I'm not going to put it on Google Classroom because most of you, when you go into a firm, first thing you're doing is drawing 2D details to figure stuff out. So we're going to sketch it, and then if you would place that. Now, you do have the full section that comes through approximately in this location. When you draw the basement, you're going to catch this exterior wall and its footing, this interior wall and its footing, this exterior wall and this footing. But remember what a section is for. It is for the major building components. And it's done at a fairly large scale, like 3/8 to a foot, where we've reduced the item a substantial amount, 32 times, I believe. And you're probably not going to get a good look at this footing in that view. So you probably ought to draw another detail of it. Now, if you remember the detail markers that we went over in the section deal, what we then want to do is produce a detail view that might look something like this, where I'm going to call it detail 2, and it's going to sit on sheet 4. Okay. So I put a marker just through that. Remember, the full section has this guy on it, right? Where we did a phantom line coming all the way through. And that goes on every plan, goes on the foundation, goes on both floor plans, the roof plan, right? Because it's cut all the way through those objects. This is only cutting through this plan. So it's the only place you're going to see it. Now when you go ahead and draw that, what you're really going to see is you're going to see the concrete floor. We have a wall that then comes up from there. And it's a 2x4 wall, so it will have drywall on both sides. We don't need to show much of it. Just some of it like this to know that it's there and we can call it out. Now what's going to go on with the footing here? If you remember back in chapter 4, we had that little chart that we've referenced several times that we have to assume that it's clay. It is one floor that we are supporting, correct? We're supporting the floor right above here. That's carrying for the first floor above the living room. In clay, what is our minimum size of footing that we can use? What's that?
Is it 18 inches?
No, it's not 18, not for one floor in a wood frame structure. We'll just stick with the IRC on this instead of calculating. 12 inches is the width. Now, generally, we can go down to 6 as the depth, but nobody's going to go to 6. Okay, so make them 8. Now, how you're going to draw that is we're not going to come in here and do a basement floor and then a 12 by 8 footing underneath it. We don't need to do this. We'll pour it at the same time the basement is being poured. And so what we generally do is we'll come in and we'll make sure that we have a bottom that is 1 foot 0 inches, like such, but then we're just going to make a little channel here. And so generally we just scoop it out with a shovel, somewhere around 45 degrees, and we make this shape. So when we're pouring the floor and we're dumping concrete in here, it just fills this little channel as we go through it. You do need 1 number 4 piece of rebar underneath that wall. So this one will be a number 4 rebar continuous. And then I would go ahead and hatch this as concrete. like such. Dimension. The object up. As such, and you've got it drawn. Okay, that provides you your, and I'll just put the dimension in here, this is 8. So we've got a 4-inch slab. We come down another 4 inches for this. And we make sure it's 12 wide centered underneath that wall. And there's your detail. You want to do your details, probably all of these, if you had a bunch of them, at 3/4 inch to 1 foot. That's a real standard size for a detail. It is being reduced 16 times. We can see that fairly substantially. Let me add a couple more details. 2x4 bearing wall, and let's add glue and nail. To it. You can show the nail if you wish. Usually, you just kind of show a little symbol, something like that. Should be a very light line weight, a little T. We have to use concrete nails on that because we are nailing it down to concrete.
What's the blue?
Well, we glue it too. We put glue down right here, and then put the wall down, and so it's glued.
I thought you had to put some sheet.
No, it'll be pressure treat on the bottom. We might even add another one. This bottom plate, although they'll know that, is that you have a pressure treat bottom plate. Yeah, that was good thinking there. Do we need to protect this from the concrete? Yes, we do. Now, generally, we're not going to put like felt or some membrane down there because we want that glue to grab onto it. The glue is actually much stronger than those nails are. I remember one time I glued one and I came back and I never cut the doors out for almost a year down in the basement one time because you put the wall up and you have it framed open and you leave the bottom plates. And I came back about a year later and that glue had really set and I cut the bottom plates out. I had to use a sledgehammer and it ripped up about an inch of the concrete that came with the board. Okay, that stuff's pretty dang strong. I think that's fairly complete detail. So then, one thing that we seem to be struggling with is a title. So this is detail number 2. With scale, 3/4 inch. Any questions on that? You see this exact detail in your foundation chapters.
So we just pick any weight bearing wall, put this detail on?
No, not any weight-bearing wall. The one that we're using here in the basement. This is the only one we're doing in the basement. It's an interior bearing wall. Nobody used a bearing wall in their crawl space, did you? An interior bearing? I think we were short enough there, everybody spanned those without any support. Now, we also had that same footing underneath, I think when I went through, this is the side of my stairs, right? We get it here and here, in case I gotta do some kind of crib framing to support all of this. That detail will apply to this too.
You don't have to specify it. I guess that's what I was really asking. You have to specify that it applies to all of them.
You know, we probably should. Detail number 2, what should we say here? Let's cover it right here in our title. How about we say typical interior bearing wall. Interior bearing. That ought to work. Has everybody got the notes that they need? Can I erase this? All right, at some point in time, you have to step back and review how the project's going and what still needs to be done. And that's what today and tomorrow is going to be about. I envision this drawing set being due somewhere around mid to late next week. Now, as of Monday, maybe Tuesday, I'm going to start giving you civil drawings too. Okay, so plan that in that you'll have until Monday to Tuesday to work during the day on this. After that, you need to work outside of the class time, and I'll give you probably till later in the week to get this drawing set in. If you get it done early, turn it in and let me know, and I'll give you a free red line on the whole set, as much as I can get done. Obviously, the first ones that get it in, yours will probably be more complete than somebody that's pushing right at the end. I would highly encourage you to take advantage of that.
You mean red line on a B-size sheet, or you want full size?
Go full size. Go full size. Let's look at the whole picture. Okay. And yeah, we're going to burn some rolls of paper, and we are going to burn some ink, but we need them to be right, and that's the process for it. I won't grade those red lines. I'll just red line them and get them back to you, and then you can hopefully have changes to make those and get them back out. Okay. All right, so what I'd like to do today is I'd like to kind of review how you're going to set this up for the plotting procedure, so you kind of get an idea of how this is going to present itself. And in addition to that, what I'd like each of you to do is to go through and work on a punch list, because we're getting to the point where you have some drawings that are fairly complete, some that aren't. So first off, when you name a sheet and the order that it goes in, when you're in the residential market, there really is no standard on a naming convention, other than just call it main floor, basement, whatever the case might be. In the commercial realm, that's a little bit different, and we'll go over that. So there's no real standard on the naming. There is a standard on the order of the sheets. Typically, we always place the drawings in the order that our construction crews are going to show up. So hence, we would look at a site plan first, right, because we got to develop the site first. Then we would go to the foundation plan. Then we'd go to the lower floor, the next floor up, the next floor up, the next floor up. Then we'd go to a roof plan, right, because that's the way we build from the ground up, right? We design from the top bottom, we build from the bottom up. And then end with some exterior type of views. For the commercial land, let's review that real quick. If you would, in your text, page 1084. There is a standard architectural naming convention. And actually, it's more than architectural, it's all drawings. And they kind of go start on page 1084, right here, where they're talking about drawing origination. Okay. What you're going to see is these names on drawings, and you'll see them on that set back there. Okay. Any commercial project will follow this scenario, where you'll start generally with a G sheet, which is general. So this would have all of your subs on it, it would have a location map, it would have these types of things that are giving you information. And they will have a G in front of the name. After that, if we have some, I wrote it in here, it's not done, there might be an SD. And that is for site demolition, in case we have to tear a building down or something like that. Maybe cut a few trees down, remove them, whatever the case might be. And those are SDs. Then you go civil, they're the next people on here. Landscape follows that. And then generally the structural follows architectural for most people, but then you go architectural, and then all of your engineering type drawings come in where you have S for structural, P for plumbing, M mechanical, E electrical. So on your drawing name, you'll always see that first. It would be, if I'm doing an architectural set, it would be A dash something. And we're just calling our sheet 1 of 8, 2 of 8, or whatever. This naming convention would be followed. Now, in addition to that, it comes down on the bottom of page 1085, they explain the naming convention. Where if you're seeing a 0, this is general information. So here's where all your legends go, those types of things, for the entire drawing set. If you see a 1, it's a plan view. If you see a 2, it's an elevation. If you see a 3, it's a section. So what I might see is arc A-1, that would tell me in those first 3 characters that I'm looking at an architectural drawing set and I'm looking at a plan view. Or I'd see A-2. That would mean I'm looking at an architectural drawing and it's going to be an elevation of some type, interior or exterior. A-3, it would be some section cut through the building. Now, in addition to that, if you go to the top of that same page, we have a little more naming convention that's put in that we start naming floors with the other conventions, such as O1, O2, O3 for the floor plan that they use here. Okay? So what you'll see is, if you, especially like if you jump into that drawing set and you look for drawing A-101. Okay? Well, this is telling you it's architectural in nature, right? So it's mostly a location map, right? That's what it is. The 1 tells you that it's a plan view. And the O1 is telling you that it is a floor plan of the first floor. Okay. If I saw an A1, O2, I'm looking at architectural floor plan of the second floor. A103 would be the third floor, and conversely on for building a large skyrise, this can get fairly large.
And these designations are all going in the sidebar.
They're going down in the bottom corner for your drawing number. And generally in these general sheets, there's also a table of contents. So about lost that term, table of contents.
So if it's A201, it means it's an architectural elevation first floor.
Elevation first sheet. And so it's probably the front elevation. So if you saw an A-201, the A says architectural, the 2 says it's an elevation, and it's your first elevation sheet.
Why does that say first floor?
Because, well, we just put our first floor there as 01. On the elevation, we might have 3 elevations on one sheet, we might have 2. We don't draw an elevation of just one floor of a multi-floor structure, we draw the entire elevation. The most important one is which one? The front. Okay, so it's probably your front elevation. But there might be a side on there too if they had room. But it's going to be your first elevation sheet. Okay. Yes?
So if you were doing a commercial building and if you had like 3 basement levels, is the very bottom one the first floor?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. And it might be labeled B-3, B-2, B-1, whatever the case might be. That's up to the people to find a naming nomenclature that they want to use. And many times when we go subterranean, we want to differentiate that versus something that's above ground. Okay. All right, so this is what you're going to see out there when you're doing commercial projects. Your naming convention. Now for you, you're just kind of naming them, you know, first floor, whatever. I would reference you as you organize your sheets back to the very first packet that I handed out. And this is the second page of it. In essence, this will give you your sheet ordering. So if you forget what we're talking about, and this is laid out in the order that things are built. So first we're coming in with the site plan, that should be sheet 1. Now your site plan, let me just kind of talk about this guy for a minute. We're walking away from our site plan at this point in time. Okay, we've got the object placed on it, but we really haven't done much else with it. Now, what I'm going to plan on doing that is that a site plan is really not an architectural drawing. It is a civil drawing. So I'm going to come back, we do have a site plan section in our civil criteria. We're going to come back and we're going to expand on this. So I'm going to use 2 site plans. I've got a commercial site plan that we standard use, but I'm going to use this one also. And I'm going to use it in 2 instances. One, we're going to have to develop access to it, or vehicular access would really be the correct term. So we're going to talk about parking, we're going to talk about turning radius of vehicles, things like that that we need to design for. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about a home sewer system. Okay? And we have a sewer component, and as crappy as that term may sound, pun intended, you're going to find, I really think sewer systems and the way we handle things are maybe in the top 5 inventions of all time for mankind. It allows us to live in communities that we do. And if you don't think it does it, take a trip to a third world nation and see what's going on in those places and the diseases that occur because they don't have these systems involved. Now certainly we have different types. We've got a municipality wastewater system that we saw, many of us saw it up in Boise or talked about it, and we have an individual one. Okay. Now this is a great instance to talk about probably the best wastewater treatment plant we have on the planet, and that is a septic tank and a drain field. Okay. It's really probably one of the cleanest solutions we have on, and that science has ever given us. Yes?
So as a draft, if you're doing a residential home and the house had a septic system, isn't that supposed to be included, or is that not?
It should be on that site plan, yes. But I'm telling you, just leave it. We're going to come back in civil and we're going to finish this drawing.
But if we don't generally do civil, but is that part of a requirement?
Yes. Many architects on the residential market, they'll do this plan. On commercial, no way. They're not touching it. A civil engineer would do it.
Well, okay, but I mean, you have to have daylight, I mean, there's a whole, you know, engineering of that thing, so.
Oh, yeah.
someone
Yeah.
else has to see
And
it.
many times in architectural residential in our area, you still got to go to a civil engineer. I mean, if you're building on the canyon and you don't have 8 foot of soil horizon, you're going to a real special system. They require that. So. Anyway, just leave this guy alone where it's at. In fact, let's not even print it. Okay, for now. We'll come back and print it when we are dealing with the civil and finish your whole set. Okay? So the next thing you would then have is your foundation. Okay. Now the foundation does have the framing for the crawl space area in it, right? Then we're going to go to your floor plans. Which floor plan should be shown first? The basement, because we got to build the basement before we put the second floor on. So your basement's going to be sheet 3. Kind of think of this as all sheets, and then you're going to fill in space with details. Okay, so site plans 1, foundations 2, floor plans are 3 and 4. You're going to have a window and door schedule in here too. Then you're going to put your shear wall brace plan. Now this one might, since we're doing it in 8, might fit quite well with your basement floor plan. Okay, I'm going to have some space in here. But I do have my roof. I might be able to put it in with my roof too. Okay. Then we've got one sheet for our elevations, where we did 2 of them at 1/4, 2 at 1/8. We have our full section, and hopefully we only need 7 sheets. Because as far as details, right now, we've only got the stair detail and our interior bearing wall detail. And hopefully we can fit those in somewhere else. Now, where do those details go? Folks, you're just gonna try and fit them in where they can. Try and make them make sense. Like if I'm doing that interior wall section, or interior bearing section detail like I drew up here, it would be make sense to put it with the foundation plan. So hence it might be labeled detail 1, sheet 2, if it's my first detail. The stair would then be 2, and maybe I put it with the second floor floor plan. Now, that's kind of the order of it. And I want to go to the computer. Now I need to kind of minimize my AutoCAD here so you can see the bottom of it. So down along the bottom, you have your model space tab. And then how many layouts do you have here? Because you guys built your own template. Do you just have a couple labeled layout on here?
I had 9 of them.
You got 9 of them? Gabe, how many you got down there?
8.
You got 8? 8.
But you have one I'm not using, so. the-
Missy, Declan, Sean?
7.
7.
No, 5 or 6.
5, 6. Juan, you right in there too, or?
What's that?
Now, do you guys know how to make one new one? So you just click on the little plus sign that makes a new one. Do you know how to copy your title block back and forth? Okay. So when you go to 1, just to real quickly show you, when I make one, you'll probably want 8 set up, and hopefully you don't use the last one, we'll see. So I just click on this, it turns into a layout, and then I right click on the tab, and I have a rename section, and I like to name them so that I know what that sheet is set up to plot. So I just click into rename, and I'll call this one section. Now when I redo that, it doesn't have a title block in it. One thing I found that will help your printing a lot, so let me go to the foundation plan. Here's my title block.